Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the panel you've probably all been waiting for. It's an exciting panel. We're talking about using AI and ML to deliver customer service. We've got a really diverse group of people. We've got people from all over the world. So myself, I'm from the UK. We've got some people from Netherlands, Singapore, Germany, which is fantastic. So hoping to get a really great discussion out of the session today. My name's Schnee. I work at Monzo as a senior product manager, and I've got over 7 years experience working on chatbots, AI, and product. And prior to that, I was working at NatWest, which is a UK-based bank, and helped build the UK's first financial chatbot at NatWest. So um, also, we were supposed to have someone called Karina on today, but unfortunately, she won't be able to make it um, just for personal reasons. But we've got Joran here from he's from ABN Amro, and he's the product owner in conversational AI and chat product based out in the Netherlands. Joran, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, right. So I'm Jeroen. I'm indeed a product owner, conversational AI and chat at ABN Amro for 4.5 years now. In that period, he basically started with a chatbot experiment, which over time developed to a conversational AI platform. And yeah, I hope to give you some more insight during this hour and have a nice discussion with the panel.
Awesome. Thanks, Joran. Next up, we've got Ashish Kulkarni. He's a director and product owner for Standard Chartered Bank based out of Singapore. Do you want to give a bit of an intro?
Yeah, so working with the bank for quite some time now, right now part of the global digital banking and conversational AI teams. Uh, Happy to solve a few use cases along the way to in different markets. Um, uh, was part of the first chatbot implementation, but like everybody is gradually moving to virtual assistants, we are also going there, trying to do some work on the voice. Yeah, that's the brief about me. Hope we have a good conversation and it's helpful for everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashish. And last but certainly not least, we've got Christoph Esslinger. He's the founder and managing director of We Agency, based out of Germany. Christoph, do you want to give a bit more of an intro?
Yeah, before I jump in, maybe a quick question. I just saw in the comments, Peter was asking no sound, no visuals. I was just checking, is that is it a general problem, or can we be, maybe the audience can give us a hint if it's working or not?
Yeah, that'd be great.
In the comments. Can you hear us?
I can see Maggie's put a comment saying hello there. Maggie, can you hear us?
Okay, so Marianne is also saying it's all fine for me. So then
Okay.
in general, it seems to be working. Okay, good. Then I'll jump in. Yeah, so my name is Christoph, as you said, Schnee. And basically, we agency, we're a team of about 40 creators from different disciplines who help companies make their way into the age of virtual assistants. And our specialty is what we call charismatic AI. And I think in the course of the discussion, I will say a little bit about what we mean by that.
Awesome. Thanks, Christoph. And yeah, great to see a lot of people commenting on the comments. Please let us know where you're from, and also, please let us know what you're expecting out of the session. It'd be great to hear from you all. And also, if you have questions, there's a Q&A section as well. I can see something on measurements come through from Craig already, so I'm sure we have got a question in regards to that as well. So please keep your questions coming. Just in terms of the flow of the session, it's going to be quite free flowing. We're going to go through some questions around chatbots, talking from various elements around key failures, how to scale, metrics, how to set up your team structure. So we're going to cover a really diverse range, and I really hope to see your questions as well. So just to kick things off, get things started. First question is just to really understand your current setup and current context today. So how is AI or ML being used to deliver customer service in your current organization? Ashish, if we start with yourself from Standard Chartered.
Yeah, no issues. Yeah, we can try. So at the bank, what we typically do is we have started using AI for different parts, right? We use it from onboarding to giving customer insights, all right, and typically do more of sales and try and understand. Besides that, we are also working on how to improve the customer experience from an automation standpoint. So the data-driven insights and other things will, of course, drive the customer behavior and will also help us better the customer journeys, right? So that's how we are using it. We've started using in some parts of collections as well, but primarily we use to understand the customer behavior and try to build intents and conversation flows around them to make it better for the customer, right? That's what we're trying to do at the bank.
Great. And I guess just from, because I know you're working globally and setting this up globally, which out of the countries that you work with, do you feel like Standard Chartered has got the most advanced in terms of AI and ML set up today?
So Hong Kong and Singapore are top of the list. We are working with some countries in the Middle East and the Asian region, like the India markets and the Malaysian markets as well. So these 4 or 5 countries and the Middle East region is a key focus actually, yeah. Because most of our business comes from there. We are present there in that sense. So.
Amazing. And what's the setup there? So is it, chat, voice, just to give a bit of a flavor on what
Yeah, so considering 100% as all interactions, right? When we started the automation journey, we were about 20-30% there in terms of conversation, but we have slowly moved the needle from about 20-30% automated responses through chatbots and virtual assistants to about 50-55% right now. So this number of interactions here, what I'm talking about is all channels, including customer service, voice, telesales, you call it chat, manual chat, etc. Right? So all these put together from a customer service or a contact center perspective, we moved the needle from about 20-25 to about 50-55 in the last couple of years through virtual assistants. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great. That's some good growth as well.
Yeah.
Sure. And same question for yourself. What's the current setup within ABN Amro?
The current setup in ABN AMRO is that basically with different applications we serve customers as well as colleagues. I think we do we operate in many fields, but I think the most significant ones in productions are the different chatbots we operate for different customer segments, as well as let's say a digital assistant for our colleagues. And we do this basically bank wide. So we're a pretty Dutch-oriented bank. We have some activities abroad, but not really. So we're a pretty domestic bank. So let's say we have a Dutch coverage in that sense.
Awesome. And is there anything in regards? So is it mainly chat interfaces? Are you doing anything in the voice space or the IVR space?
In the voice IVR space, not in production at the moment. So no, I can't say we do that towards the customers, but we definitely do with our digital assistants on app, web, some different interfaces, different concepts. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. And Christoph, I know you're working with various different clients as a consultancy. So any particular case studies or examples you want to give from people you've worked with?
Yeah, so maybe what I would like to talk about, the question was how you use AI and machine learning to deliver customer service, right? And I think what Ashish just said was a very important point. So he said, for us, it's about improving customer experience, better customer journeys. And I think that is exactly the right approach. That is what we usually try to achieve with our clients. So technology is not the center. It is very important, but technology is to help to achieve us something. We had it also this morning, the first keynote. I like that very much how Jeff was saying it's about helping the user. That's also why we went away from talking about chatbots or voice bots, talking about virtual assistants. It's about creating something that helps. That is of help, that is support, and we touched onto this a little bit yesterday in the preparation. For me, all of this is really about this paradigm shift of moving away from I, as a user, have to understand the interface to the interface understands me. And if technology is used to achieve that, then it can create great customer service.
Yeah, I really agree, Christoph. And I guess just on that point, that leads us nicely on to the next question. Like at the moment, from where I stand, and this is my very much personal opinion, but I feel as if chatbots are kind of positioned as the solution and this all singing, all dancing solution from a customer service perspective. But do we genuinely feel that chatbots are the solution? Or are there other ways that we can solve the problem? Do we think that customers really love chatbots and they're getting a great experience for them, or is it mainly just a way to save costs for organizations?
I personally think you have to look from it at different angles. I think chatbots are just a sample of let's how call it's a single chatbot is a single concept of conversational AI. And I think if you look broader towards the technology, I think you can offer it in different concepts as well. So I definitely would not limit this topic towards being a chatbot in a chatbot only. I don't think you, how do you say that? You make use of the value. You don't make optimal use of the value of the technology in that sense. So I definitely would say approach from a broader perspective.
That's a very good point, Jordan. Right? I see. I probably will answer in a slightly different way. Right? See, 60 to 70% of the of the people worldwide must have interacted with a chatbot over the last a year or so. So let's not say it's singing and dancing. Sorry, it is actually it's here to stay. Okay. Um, and what I personally feel is it's not about how it's about how you implement it and in what phases will you develop it. It's like your employee in the bank or employee in your organization, right? The chatbot, you should treat the chatbot like an employee. It's you have to train it, you have to nurture it, and that's when you start getting the results. So what I think is that the chatbots are here to stay. It'll only grow, and it's our responsibility to make it better, so that not only from a cost efficiency standpoint, but it's important for organizations to be there where the customer needs, and not only on one channel, but on the channel where the customer prefers, right? So it's available 24/7. It can answer your queries whenever you want. It's just that building use cases after use cases and making it more complex is something that we should work around. Just not leave it with the first phase results, saying that okay, it's all singing and dancing, not good, etc. That's what I think about this. Yeah.
Great. What do you think, Christoph?
Yeah, I think it's two very good points. Thank you to Jerome and Ashish. And I think both points are have their own value. So I think what Jerome said is that look at it from a more holistic perspective, right? And Ashish was saying okay, well, chatbots until now are a very important interface because they are in heavy use. So my personal view on this is that chatbots are here to stay, but in my eyes, it's going to be one kind of chatbots that will stay and another kind will die out. What I mean by that is that when you look at the history of customer service, right, and you go back 150 years, customer service was delivered in direct face-to-face interaction. People were coming to shops, they were saying, I have a problem, and you were directly talking to them. With the invention of the telephone, you could scale that, but you were still talking directly with people, okay? And over the last few decades, we have moved actually away from talking with people towards talking to people. So we put something out there, and we were not interacting on it. That's for you, take it, and we got something which was called self-service, And that's why I think that chatbots that are merely better apps and that keep that thing of just talking to people will die out. But the ones that really go into an interaction, because now we have a technology actually in place that allows us to going back from talking to people to talking with people, but at scale. So we can be the shop owner that is really that really wants to interact with their customers, but we can do it at scale. And I think that's going to be the future. And the chatbots that do that, they will stay, because in just some, in some instances, chatting is just the best way I want to interact with.
Yeah, I fully agree to that. So you really have to make sure you connect to people, and not only, having sort of a different shape of a web page, sort of. So just spreading out information, by basics. So more rule-based bots. People will, how do you say that? Push through that. They will look through that and then reject them quite quickly, actually. And that's actually what you're already seeing happening in the market, right? So you see the sentiment in the market about rule-based chatbots, and let's be honest, there's a sort of sentiment, at least in Netherlands, going on, oh my God, it's a chatbot again once they open the chat. So you really have to go to the next level pretty quickly to make sure that your customer starts loving and start interacting with the bot. And I think also personalization is the keyword here. So to what extent are you able to personalize the interaction with the customer you're facing with your bot at that specific moment? So I think that's something everyone should keep an eye on and think about. How are you going to make sure that for your company, you're going to offer personalized interactions with your customers?
Yeah, really good points. And I think the point that we're making is, like, as a chatbot community, we need to really advocate for creating really personalized and amazing experiences, because otherwise we will get into that position where, customers really don't like what they're experiencing. And so it's really important that we're driving forward this kind of advocacy for really thinking and being thoughtful and conscious about the products that we're putting live for customers, as opposed to just purely seeing it as a cost save tool. Also, just to the audience, please share your comments, share your thoughts. I see, Maggie, you're sharing some good thoughts here and questions. It'd be great to hear from more of you, just in terms of comments and thoughts and opinions, just to say that you're really engaged in the conversation. I'll try and bring in the relevant points as we're going along. So now, actually, just to really try and make this as valuable to the audience as possible, we want to learn and talk and be quite vulnerable and talk about our failings and what hasn't gone so well whilst trying to do this. So first kind of question in regards to this section is, on your journey for using AI, ML to deliver customer service, what do you wish you would have known before starting? And I guess, what advice would you give to the audience?
Let me try to take a stab at this, right? See, in a bank or any organization, we only know the first level of the interaction, right? Let's say, for example, I'm calling a IVR or I'm calling a contact center. The data that's captured is only level one, where the customer is called for a checkbook request or has a complaint or something like that. We don't get the second or the third layer of conversation that happens, because it is not captured in any CRM and other things, right? I think if we would have had that information, right, it would have been a better success, right? Because we would then try to map the whole conversation and try to build those use cases in a better way. I think that was something that we corrected ourselves, and then we used a lot of technologies to understand the conversations, not only in on the customer service side, but on in the branches and with the RMs, etc., and collected them in one place to improve the conversational flows in the virtual assistant. I think that was a key learning from an implementation standpoint for us. Yeah.
And just to probe a little bit, Ashish, so how did you join the dots up? So you talked about, chatbot experience versus branch experience and being able to join the dots. So how were you able to join the dots? And second question is, what additional insights did you get as a result?
So typically, right, if a customer wants to block his card, right, the next best action is to do a card replacement. I'm just giving you a very very naive example, right? But if the bot is not knowing why the customer is blocking the card, then it becomes very difficult to flow, right? The second thing is, do you want to block all their cards? You want to block one product? So those kind of conversations is something that we understand. When we looked at the branch interactions, most of these customers were coming into the branches, they're spending a lot of time, and there were a lot of complaints around that. So one of the use cases that we explored was, can we do tokenization or or queuing up and giving tokens to the customer so that they can go at whatever time they want into the branches, right? So that those kind of use cases came from the branches. From the RMs, there were a lot of wealth inquiries on the chatbot, right? So we connected them to the specific RMs, like how it was earlier mentioned about personalization, right? So we connected them with the RMs, and there was a back and forth around that with them. So these are some of the use cases that actually popped up when we looked at the second level data and the third level data. Then we also try to do speech to text, understood what the contact centers are, why is the customer asking for annual fee waiver, let's say, for example, right? What is the reason? Is he not able to pay, or is it because he's not interested in the card, or does he have some other primary card? So these are some of the things that actually helped us understand. So broadly, these are some of the things that we knew at a later stage. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ashish. Joran, I'll come over to you next.
Yeah, I think I go a bit earlier in time, sort of. So it was, I think the biggest failure was immediately made at the start. So what I think is what you should realize from the start, that NLP, NLU, machine learning applications, where conversational AI is driven by, of course, is a data product. So actually, what you should start with is having a data-driven setup for your approach. So what we did wrong at the start is that we thought of that we basically we were a small team, we were with 4 people, and we had to set up an experiment in 4 months. But what you should avoid is thinking yourself what the customer question might be. So if you set up your chatbot for the first time, or a digital assistant, or you're going to explore new topics or new customer segments with your digital assistant, put a very basic level open bot in your chat channel, or in your in your conversational interface, and start learning from there what the customers are actually asking from you, and build your dialogues based on that. I think that was the biggest mistake we made at the start, and how it goes now goes way better. But it gives you a sprint. It gives you how do you say that? A speedy start. Let's call it like that. If you approach from a data-driven perspective, instead of filling in the questions yourself.
Great. No, really good. Thanks, Joran. Christoph, what have been some of the learnings you've found working with various different clients?
Yeah, I think the last point by Jeroen, that's actually a really great point. Thank you for that. So I think that's also something we have experienced, that the best thing is to very, very quickly learn from your customers, and that's actually also where this part of charismatic AI that I talked about in the beginning comes in. Because what we try to do is make this the first step through the front door as attractive as possible, so that the user wants or is willing to work with you, to actually share with you. Because if you lose him right at the start, you're giving away the most valuable thing that you have, which Jeroen said. I completely agree with that. What do they actually want? In my eyes, conversational data is the most valuable data that you can get, because in contrast to a visual interface, on a visual interface, you always priming the user, and he has a certain choice from which he can choose. On a perfect conversational interface, you can ask, I know this is still hard, but looking a little bit into the future, you can ask the completely open question. You can do it also now, and you just have to collect the data, but you might not be able to respond to it. But you can ask any question, and that means you can find out at any point of the customer journey exactly what the user wants at that point, and that is really, really valuable. And in terms of these learnings and additional learning that we have taken out from setting up these projects, is, I think, it's really, in my eyes, it's really about the mutual respect between technology enthusiasts, developers, and design enthusiasts, designers. When you are able to create this mutual respect, you will get to a great experience. Why? Because you need people that focus on technology and that are just completely fascinated about pushing the boundaries of technology, and they should be focused on technology. But if you leave out the second part, you lose the user. So usually the designers is the one that is very focused on the user. But again, if you have only designers in there, you have no idea what you can achieve with technology. So only if you manage to actually combine these two strengths, you get a strong team and you get a great experience for your user in the end.
Definitely. And we're going to touch on structure a little bit later. But just to come back to an earlier point you mentioned around, I totally agree that through conversation, you're able to understand exactly what a customer needs within that specific moment of time. I think the problem I've certainly experienced is when you're getting 10 million conversations a year, how do you categorize that data in an efficient way that allows you to then pick up those insights? Does that make sense, Christoph?
I say that it's a different, right? I don't know, when you say categorize data, it's easier to I mean, it's difficult to categorize, but if you can derive client journeys, right? Because if, let's say for example, right, if the customer is asking for a branch address somewhere, probably a very vague example, we don't know why is he asking for a branch address. If you just categorize the data in branch address, why, and buckets, then it doesn't make sense. It's important to have, what did the customer ask, uh, two questions, what were the two questions that were asked previously, and what are the two questions asked after that particular thing, right? That stitching of that journey is important, and that's when I think you'll be able to solve most of your challenges, right? Instead of bucketing them into intent, saying that, okay, look, this is a branch intent, this is a balance intent, or this is a complaint intent, it really doesn't help much, is and that's from my experience, is what I think is important.
So to summarize you correctly, you talk about basically categorize your data based on the complete journey of the customer instead of the single first question they ask.
Correct. You cannot categorize them. Yeah, you're right. You cannot categorize them only by the intent or the question, right? You have to look at the whole journey as to what happened in that interaction, and then map it. Then you will see a lot of interconnected points, and then you can pick on what's the biggest challenge that you have, and then try to solve for that.
Yeah, I agree. And what you also see, right? I mean, having a conversation with the customer and capturing that conversation gives you the information which is like has limited freedom of interpretation in comparison to browsing history of customers or clicking behavior, that kind of stuff, because there's also some space of free interpretation where you can still misinterpret what the customer is actually doing or willing. And with conversational information you collect, well, that leaves way less space for interpretation. So that's really, really valuable also for the rest of your organization to capture the data, interpret it, and make use of it.
Yeah.
So I really agree with what you're saying.
Great. Okay, coming on to the next question. So we talked a bit around kind of what we'd wish we'd known before we started. I want to talk a bit more about scaling. So what have been some of the challenges or key learnings that you've found when scaling your conversational AI? Like, what were the hardest things, and what advice would you give to this audience going through that same journey? If we start with Joran.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge was to get, you don't have to convince your own team, right? I mean, everyone in your team is very, very convinced about conversational AI and the future it holds. That can be way different for the rest of the organization, as in my experience, many view it as experimental, not bulletproof in terms of accuracy. Well, you can name it, you know it. So I think the biggest challenge is to get the organization behind your assistant or conversational AI in general, and really they start believing in it and embracing in it as basically the new way to go to offer service to your customers digitally, not only in the chat channel, but in general offering service towards your customers. And I think that's the hardest journey that you can take. As I can see, of course, the technical development is also extremely hard, of course, and you really have to have really bright minds in your team to get the work done. But if you translate it into what consumes your time, basically, it can take a very, very long time before you have your organization behind it. I think that's the biggest challenge.
I'll probably take a step. What he mentioned was absolutely right. It's a first step, and probably I'll add a few more things to continue the conversation. Right. Besides getting the organization behind you, it's always important to start with a baby step. Right. uh, start small, and make it good, and then do an incremental release. Probably that's first thing. The second thing that comes to my mind when we are talking about this is don't be fearful of getting a lot of complaints, right? Because you cannot learn swimming by reading the book. You got to get into the pool. Test it with your customers. Don't test it within your staff, because your staff, to be honest, right, don't know what the customer is asking. Let's be honest about it, right? Customers can ask anything. Uh, so test it with the customers, implement it, and then learn along the way. Uh, and the third thing that I think comes to my mind, or in the top of my mind, is your containment rates and your accuracy rates. Everything will fall down when you add new intents. So it only improves with annotation, so or with machine learning. So give it a try. Don't feel shy of your accuracy rate and containment rates going down if you have introduced new intents, and then see how it goes. Yeah, so that, I think that's what I think matters the most, at least from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I might ask then a question about it, if the others are okay about it as well. So how did you convince your organization about this?
It was more.
So they see all the time, they see a fallback in your bot performance every time you expand. The live chat agents get the chats in what is handed over from your bot, and there are all complaints. That's also sort of bias they get, of course. So can you provide some insights how you made sure that you twisted that around?
Yeah, so it's okay. So first market is actually difficult, right? When you implement the first one, everybody is looking at you. While it was always looked at a new technology and a new implementation, there were a lot of apprehensions about doing it, right? So we first released it to, we select group of customers, right? We segment in a bank. Typically, you have the personal banking segment, the priority, and other things, right? So we focused on a specific segment when we released it. We saw the results, and then we move forward. That's how on the first part. But when we added new intents, we were able to showcase the accuracy and containment rates of those specific intents uh, in a different way, and said, look, your old intents are working good. They are showing an accuracy of 90 and containment rates are about 85-90%. You should be happy with them. The current containment rate is also about, for the new intents, about 60-70%, and accuracy is low because it's learning, right? And the good thing that we did was, we did not leave the customer hanging. If the customer was not answered properly, then we always had a handoff to the live agent, chat agent rather, right? So that really helped us to capture what the customer wants and improve it back. So when you marry those two things, right, the feedback and the machine learning, then your new intents also keep improving. So as long as you're reporting it properly in two different ways, right, I think it should be okay. And everybody understands today in the organization, or across everybody, right? Every organization, people understand that it's a baby. I mean, well, once you implement it, right, it'll grow with time. It'll learn with time. So we'll have to give that space.
Yeah.
I don't know if it helps you.
I think I see it in a similar way, Ashish. So I think also that the way that you approached it, right? You did the baby steps in the right manner, so that like they were accepted. What we have seen gone wrong often in the market is actually you're running into this chicken egg problem. So that's what I think. Jiron, I'm not sure if it was you like that said, yeah, it's an experiment. It's an experiment for the rest of the company. So if you do this iterative process wrong, you would run into problems, because what we have seen gone wrong is, let's take something off the shelf, like a better FAQ site, which is like like disguised as a chatbot. Let's put it out there. And then let's, like, based on that, we evaluate if this technology has a future or not. Well, what's the problem with that? The FAQ site does not pretend to be a conversational partner. So like it doesn't get users angry if it doesn't understand. But something that pretends to be a conversational partner but doesn't understand 9 out of 10 times will perform worse than the actual FAQ site, right?
Yeah.
So you answer this question wrongly, but if you take the right first steps into it, as she's described, right, then you can show the value that you create at every step of the way, right?
Yeah.
And I think another thing which is about scaling, is in the end, you are creating one conversational brain at the back of everything, and the different chatbots and possibly voice bots are funneled from a consistent brain. So that's also something that we have worked on quite a lot for companies that wanted to scale across different countries, across different have a consistent conversational CI, for example, at the back of it. And I think here also lies a great opportunity in terms of, because you will run into the challenge of connecting silos, especially within very big enterprises. For example, I think what we have also encountered is that customer service is actually running ahead without talking to brand. But what are you doing when you're producing a virtual assistant? You're putting a representative of your company at your front door to speak as a first point of contact with all of your customers. That has huge brand implications. And so what we usually was recommending to do, let's bring these things together. Let's involve brand from the very start, because it has a huge impact. And then, if brand is involved and sees that, right, they root for your technology, because they say, well, this has a huge impact. I have now something that can speak. It represents me directly, and it speaks with my users, with my customers directly.
Yeah, and that worked great for us as well. And what I want to add to that, also, your contact center colleagues are the experts among your organization with solving problems with the customer by conversation. So it actually makes sense to put them also in combination with conversational designers, write them the dialogues, because they know exactly how to explain or how to solve the problem with the customer through chat or through voice even later on. Yeah.
Brilliant. Really good discussion on this question, which is great to see, and also some great comments. I can see Chris Joseph Hartley has basically talked about how chatbots are now able to automate many tasks without then having to escalate to the live agent. So this then ultimately means that the agent doesn't need to deal with the low level or simple tasks, and they can focus their time on the more complex tasks. And he then goes on to say that this increases user satisfaction and also increases the job satisfaction. So I think that leads us nicely into metrics actually around satisfaction for the customer. So the question is, how do you measure the success of your customer service, specifically in relation to your AI or ML solutions? So what other metrics do you use to measure success? And it would be great just to hear some examples on this. Ashish, if I could start with yourself, please.
Right. So, see, typically what everybody does is take the feedback at the end of the interaction, right? That's the simplest way to capture the feedback, try to improve it, right? But in addition to that, you always have some metrics available, which is like your containment rates and your accuracy rates as to how properly is the bot answering, whether it is right or wrong, because and then how is the agent handoff smooth, etc., right? These are some of the things. But one of the key things that I think is the customer coming back to the bot for his solutions. I think that's one of the key metrics, in my view, is very important, because if I don't see any repeat customers coming to me and talking to my bot, then I think I am not doing a great job of implementation, right? Or I'm not solving his use cases. So as long as that's happening, I think we are in a good shape, right? Besides the NPS and the feedback that you capture, and try to improve this thing. So we need to see more of repeat customers coming to the bot and talking. I think that's one of the key metrics, to see if it goes well or not. Because yeah, and the second thing is, are we shifting the conversations from branches and human assisted channel to an automated channel, which is, it can be a voice bot or a chat bot, or it can be anything else, right? So what is a shift from your physical or your channels to your automated channel? That These are the two metrics I think are key for me, at a very high level, right? Then you can dwell into other metrics which can be monitored.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Jorin.
Yeah, and what I would like to add to that, I fully agree with Ashish, but what I would like to add to that as well is that also you always have a share of handovers, and start treating them not as a mistake, but start treating handovers as the right steering mechanism where the customer is helped best. So it's not only about automating the conversation with your digital assistant, but also start deliberately handing over conversations where you think if the customer is best served with by the support of an advisor or an agent or something like that. So in that sense, you also load the value for the customer of your digital assistant more and more and more. And if you also start to report on that more, so distinct the handovers from because your agent did it or your assistant didn't understand it versus the handovers you deliberately steer towards those specialists, that can be a great value add-on to your assistant, actually, also for your organization. So also start viewing it from that perspective, and not only like sort of a Chinese wall between the customer and the agent. I think that helps you a lot in the organization as well.
I completely agree with that. The thing you just said, Jorin, I think also like we have always seen, the virtual agent and the human agent as the perfect complements, actually. And as the comments were showing before, right? Again, it's about respect towards the human agent and what they, because they are to be honest, they are the role model, right? They're the role model we're trying to imitate, right? We're trying to get towards them, and we have to be aware all the steps on the way. What are the things that we cannot currently do as well? And basically this viewing it as, well, I'm actually supporting the human agents in taking off their hands things that just like, basically maybe also numb their brain a little bit, because they have to like answer, the same question 100 times in a row, instead of like really delivering customer service and focusing on specific complex problems with their customers. I think that's the way to see it. And then you also solve that problem, that you're not coming in as a threat, right? But you're coming in as an ally, right?
Exactly.
You can come in as an ally. And I would also say, like adding to what you said, I think I just had this morning a very interesting discussion with one of my teammates about this, and he made a very interesting point, which says, like, if your user does not pass the front door, all that you measure inside of the house is useless. And I think that's also a very good point. So, like, you should be very wary of like measuring when your chatbot pops up. The people that see it, do they actually enter? Do they even enter that front door? And after the first question, are they still there? This very, very first part, do you manage that? Because all that remains inside is potentially the already converted, the ones that are just like, very affine to like trying out a new technology, but it's not your general customer. So you have to really focus in terms of metrics on this very, very first point of contact.
Brilliant. We've got just over 10 minutes left, and I've still got a few questions that I would like to dig into. So the next one is around risk and governance. So how have you worked with risk and governance within your organization and to deploy AI and ML customer-facing solutions? What have been the obstacles? What are they interested in? How do you overcome those challenges? And also, given we've got people from different countries, how does it work in those different countries? Ashish, if I can start with you.
No issues, right? So the first thing is for the risk and compliance is when you wear a hat of risk and compliance, you say how is the data being protected, how are the customers being protected with their information, etc. So the PII becomes very, very crucial as to how we manage that, right? Whether it is a cloud implementation or an on-prem implementation, it really doesn't matter. But some of the things that we faced was when we tried to do a multi-market implementation, right? Some of the challenges that came to us was are we going to have different instances? Then is it going to be sitting in the vendor partner location, or where is it, kind of thing, right? So those data issues were very key that we had to manage. Uh, So some of the confidence that came from was we had end-to-end encryption done. The data was protected, no PI information shared with anybody. We don't use anything of that for annotations as well. So those kind of information really helped, right? And the second thing is from a risk and governance is about brand, right? How are you sure that as a because it's a first implementation, how sure are you that this will not invoke bad publicity in the market, right? So some of those things had to be thought through when we were implementing it, right? We tested it multiple times, multiple people before we started doing it. So these were the two key things when we did. And some of the countries don't allow you to push the data outside, right? So you will have to have the data center or cloud implementation within the market. So these were a few things that really were blockers initially, but now we have opened up, right? And a lot of regulations are also being eased in terms of how you manage the data, how you manage the implementation, etc. Right? So that it's become easier now, uh, but was difficult when we started about 3-4 years back. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ashish. Who'd like to go next? Jorin?
Yeah, I think it starts with yourself, how you approach them. So I think how I see our risk parties is really they are specialists who can help us out in designing not only the technology but also the conversations to make sure it goes well. So how we normally approach them is that we go to them for advice, and not picking up the advice and then we implement it and then done, but they're actually part of the creation process. I had processes in the past where actually a legal advisor was involved in the dialogues we designed to make sure that on one side they were customer friendly, but on the other side we ensured that we didn't ask for data or ask for information what we don't want to have at certain places. So approach them as an ally, having them thinking along with you, also looking towards the future instead of just picking up the requirements from them and then tap them off on the list, mark them on the list, sort of. I think that helps out a lot. And also in terms of, you always design a conversational AI platform with a certain future in mind. So take them along in that future so they can think along as well to make sure that they don't put up obligations to you which can interrupt that future vision, or find a practical way we're still within the boundaries that on one side the data is secure, on the other side it doesn't make your future development problematic. I think that is key. So really approach them as a not co-developer, but as a co-creator instead of how do you say that? Yeah, another desk where you need to get a stamp from. I think that's the worst case. That's the worst approach you can take.
Brilliant. Christoph, what's been your experience working with clients in this regard?
Maybe one first thing, because I'm also following the chat here. I just want to give a shout out to all the people, nice people who are saying hello: Lorraine, Maggie, Elmar, Walter. It's nice to read your comments. Unfortunately, we don't have a chat window, so we cannot chat back, but we can maybe react to some of the questions. So I think one risk, if you if you let me say, if you move into a higher level of virtual assistant, is right. The more you really put a real conversational partner out there, right. To some degree, you also go into a higher, or you have to manage higher risks, right? Because if it's clear that we are just answering a few FAQs, right? The risk also of having a reply to a sensitive question, for example, a politically sensitive question, right? That would be completely perceived in the wrong way, is lower than if we move more and more into real conversational partnership. And you have to you have to manage that, I think, in a good way. I think so. One thing we have seen is for example, to cascade through different bot layers. So you have the sensitive areas higher in your layering. And you also work with higher confidence scores for very sensitive questions. So, for example, this is something that is very relevant, for example, to media companies whose job it is to report on news, to take on opinions, right? For them, this is a very, very challenging question. In a normal customer service setup, it's not as much the case, because what you expect from your conversational partner is first and foremost to deliver customer service, right? And not to work around these questions. But for a media company, that can be quite a challenge, actually, in terms of how do you deal with these sensitive questions.
Yeah, totally agree. So we've got 5 minutes left. I think what would be best, given we've got such an engaged audience, is to start taking some questions from here. And I'll do a quick fire round. So I'm just going to go to one person for an answer, and that way we can get through more questions. So this one, I think for yourself, Ashish, what is the time to market for text and voice bots, and what is the cost associated with deploying a conversational bot?
I mean, it's a very tricky question, right? It depends on what are your use cases, etc. Right? So if I were to implement something new right now, probably I would start with some basic unauthenticated, which don't need any authentication or which are basic queries, and start building on that. So as long as you're delivering an incremental uh, intents every 2-3 months, right? And keeping your metrics constant, let's say probably 85% uh, handoff, 85% containment and about 90-95% accuracy on your old intents, I think it should be a good one. But always look at incremental build, right? And the cost associated is it's easier said than done, but as long as you're paying less than 1/3 or 1/5 of the cost to the virtual assistant for deploying, I think we should be able to do. You should also realize that you will not get the benefits immediately, so it'll come over time. So be patient and keep working on that. That's I think would my thinking.
Great. Thanks, Ashish. And Barina, thanks for the question. Next one's for you, Jorin. Going back to an earlier question, what specifically helped you most to get the organization on board? And do you have any tips for Walter? I hope I'm saying that correctly.
I think having them participate in the journey of creating the bot, putting it live, seeing the results, making it better, etc. I think that's key. So don't have them waiting at the finish line and shouting them sometimes while you're halfway, why aren't you here yet? But take them on board in your car and make the journey with them. And there are some great arguments to involve them directly in the development of your bot, which one of them I gave earlier this meeting. So get them on board.
Awesome. Thanks, Jorin. Last one for yourself, Christoph. This is from Craig Waghorn. Do you feel a persona for bots is necessary, and do you have examples of a benefit?
Definitely, yes, because that's all about what I talked about when you want to go into conversational partnership, and when you want to go away from like just talking to people and talking with people, you have to also know who you are. So like you try to work with your conversational partner. You try to see like what they are talking to you about and so on, but you have to know who am I, right? And as I said, like the impact for a company is huge if you just take that analogy and say like, okay, well, I'm putting one representative out there. First greeting, who am I? Right? That's crucial, absolutely crucial. It's like sometimes I'm saying like our team, we consider ourselves as the coaches of that one special virtual employee, right? And if you would choose someone to represent yourself, your company, to millions of customers, that's a hiring call that you have to do very carefully, right? Because the positive impact can be huge, but the negative impact can also be huge.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, look, I think we're at time. I just want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you. Jorin, Christoph, Ashish, fantastic conversation. Also great to have such an engaged audience. Please do, follow us on LinkedIn, and if you've got any questions, I'm sure that haven't been answered, I'm sure we'll all be happy to answer them individually. And I hope you found it useful. I've certainly did, and I think we covered a lot of ground. So massive thank you, and see you later. Take care.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.